Hi VET, I'm Nina, I'm one of your pig tutors, and I'm going to make this video about piglets. The most critical time to get a piglet through is definitely the first 24 hours. So when they are born, the first step is to make sure that you remove all their fetal membranes and to ensure that they can breathe. Usually the first few piglets will do this by themselves because they're very strong, and the mother will also help remove it because she even eats the placenta. But some piglets are really weak, especially those 2 to 4 that are born last. They are situated closer to the ovaries and the placenta breaks before they reach the birth canal. So they are basically born in hectic, hypoxic conditions. So the chances are really high that they are going to be stillborn. So if you can remove these fetal membranes, they've got a better chance to live. Another thing that you can do to stimulate breathing is to rub them with their bedding. You can also do this to reduce heat loss, but this is also something you should do in the first 24 hours. Disinfect the navel and cut and tie the umbilical cord. Most of them, like 70%, will be born with one, except, like I mentioned previously, those won't. And you should always allow your piglets to suckle as soon as possible. Remember that like the birth process, like to farrow, is a very long process. It can take up to 3 hours. So the piglets that are born earlier, you should definitely let them suckle as soon as possible so that they can get in colostrum. Because as soon, like 6 hours after birth, the colostrum will just decrease. So get your piglets to suckle as soon as possible. It's important to have an infrared lamp at the side so that the piglets don't get too cold. It's also to reduce heat loss, and it must be about 32 degrees. If there are certain things practiced such as teeth clipping, then it's also advised to do this in the first 24 hours. Excessive feeding in early pregnancy is not a good thing because she will struggle to implant embryos in her uterus, and number 2, she will really have problems giving birth. So it's not a good thing to excessively overfeed your sow gilt. Yes, you do crib feed her a little bit so that it stimulates more embryos to be implanted, but if you give this in an excess amount, then it will just lead to negative implications. A few stats that you know is that when a piglet is born, its birth weight is about 1.3 kilograms, and when it's weaned, it's about 7 kilograms, and the time between birth and wean is about 4 weeks. Okay, your sow has to produce at least 2.2 liters a year. This is about 21 plus piglets a year. Then it is like a successful sow. At day 3, you have to do an iron injection. This is basically a supplement because piglets grow up to 5 times their birth mass in the first 3 weeks. So it is crazy. You just want to supplement them to make sure you maintain a steady growth rate, to prevent anemia, because sometimes they don't get sufficient iron from their milk or their environment, and you just want to ensure that they get this. But it's also important not to inject too much iron because it can also lead to toxicity. So to the method to inject the piglets, I don't have a piglet here, but I will demonstrate it basically. You do an intramuscular injection, and there's 2 places where you can do this injection, but it's advised to do it behind the ear, in the neck, because abscesses can form. It can decrease the meat quality. Obviously, you want to make sure that you don't have a dirty place where you inject them, and thus behind the ear is the best place to do this. Okay, you should not drop your needles, break your needles. Make sure that you use clean needles when you inject them. Next up is tail docking. Okay, so the piglet can only feel up to about half of its tail. So if piglets are bored or they bully each other and tail biting occurs, then they don't feel it and then it can get infected, and you don't want that, okay? So basically what you do for tail docking is you cut about half of the tail, you cut it off, okay, midway, and then you just make sure you put on some antiseptic to the wound, and there you go. And then identification. This is also a legal requirement for you to do. Tattooing would be the legal requirement, and ear notching can be basically for you and the farmer, okay? So it's different from sheep and cattle in a way that the bigger numbers are on the left, okay? And you use an ear notcher. It is basically the same principle as notching any other animal. Another way of identifying your pig is by an ear tag. It can be either metal or plastic, and it's at the outside of the ear. It's really easier to read than tattoos. It can be there to supplement tattoos. Legally, according to the law in South Africa, I think it's Act 6 of 2002, you have to tattoo your pig, okay? Also different from a sheep, you tattoo on the outside of the ear, and it depends what color your pig is. If it's a black pig, black or colored pig, you can use green ink, but if it's a white pig, you can use black ink, okay? And it's important that you do it within the first 15 days, okay? You have 15 days, and then you have to tattoo your pig. You also get collars with transponders and responders, okay? This is not used at all for piglets. It's only used for certain adult house pigs, sows that need certain feed, so it's specified so that they can see that pig is wearing that collar and it needs special feed different to the rest. It's more usually used in commercial piggeries, okay? But it's quite expensive, but I think it does its job. Another thing that you can do for identification is a microchip. It's usually implanted, you just inject it in behind the ear in the skin, and yeah, it's not routinely used in commercial piggeries, but it is used for biomedical research. So for males, castration can also be done in the first week, usually also by day 3, okay? Boars reach puberty in 6 months, and they're ready to be used for mating by like 8 to 9 months. And it's not everybody has to castrate the boars. Obviously, if you're going to use your boar for mating, then not. But it is believed that castrating can prevent boar taint in meat. It can prevent unwanted mating, it can prevent aggressiveness, but castration is not routinely done at onderste poort, okay? You've got a lot of risks if you castrate. So you can have excessive bleeding, herniation, infection. Giving the piglets creep feed is done by the 14th day, okay? And what is creep feed? Creep feed is a high quality feed. It's very expensive. It's got a lot of milk powder, protein, carbohydrates, vitamins and minerals in it. So it's really good for the piglet, okay? It's basically to condition the gastrointestinal system to go to solid foods, okay? Because it's going to go through a transition from only milk to only solid foods when it's weaned. So you want to ease out that transition, decrease the amount of stress they go through, and it has a major number of advantages to it as well. Obviously the piglets will have a lot of nutrients that they take in, so it will increase the nutrient intake, it will increase the growing rate, it will increase the weaning weight, the post-weaning weight, and overall it's just a fantastic practice to do, okay? But it doesn't help you do it incorrectly, because then it's just a waste of money, okay? So it's remember that sows love this feed and they will do anything to get to it, so don't place it near the sow, okay? And for dosing and drenching, it's important for pigs that you give them medicines in a powder or a tablet form, because you don't want liquid or fluid entering their lungs. and you can only dose piglets. Fostering piglets is a common thing to do because sometimes one sow produces too many piglets for her to maintain and another sow too little. So it's easy to just transfer and give another sow a piglet from the other one. This is a big question actually, which piglet do you give and when do you do this, okay? So during the first 3 days, the piglets kind of form like a teat order, and this is very important. So you can only do the fostering within the first 3 days before the teat order is established. Otherwise, the teat order has to be re-established, and this is just going to cause violence and unwanted bullying, and you don't want that, okay? And if you have to transfer a piglet, you must rather transfer the stronger piglets rather than the weaker piglets, because if you had to transfer a weak piglet into a new environment with a new mother, it can maybe be just too much stress for it and maybe it won't make it. So rather choose the strongest piglets than the weaker one.